Who am I? When I opened my eyes slowly, everything around me was blurry and confusing. I tried to remember how I got here, but my mind was empty like a deserted desert. The place looked strange. I didn't recognize the furniture, the walls, or even the ceiling. Who am I? What is my name? I couldn't remember anything about myself. I felt dizzy like a storm was inside my head, and I could barely sit up on the bed. I looked around, searching for anything that might help me remember. There was a mirror on the opposite wall. I gathered what little strength I had and stood up slowly, heading towards it. The reflection in the mirror showed a pale face with tired eyes, but I couldn't recognize it. Is this me? With slow, heavy steps, I moved towards the table next to the bed. There was a small notebook and a pen. Maybe I had written something that could help me. I opened the notebook and started flipping through the pages. They were filled with writings, but none of it seemed familiar to me. Each page had words and phrases, but nothing felt like it belonged to me. I sat back on the bed, putting my head in my hands, feeling helpless and lost. Thoughts were fighting in my mind, but there was no clue about who I was. I felt an overwhelming need to rest, like my body was begging for sleep to heal itself. I lay down on the bed and closed my eyes, wishing to wake up and remember everything. I fell into a deep sleep and started dreaming. There were images and sounds, people and places, but all were blurry and unclear. I was running through long corridors, searching for something I couldn't define. Suddenly, a face appeared before me, a face that seemed vaguely familiar. I tried to remember, to hold on to it, but the closer I got, the more it faded into the mist. I woke up again, but this time with a different feeling. There was something in that dream, something that pointed to the beginning of a path. I got up from the bed, took a deep breath, and decided to keep searching for myself and my past. I didn't know who I was, but I was determined to find out. This was just the beginning, and I had a feeling that the answers were within my reach. I decided to explore the room more carefully. Maybe there was something I had missed. The room was small, with just a bed, a table, and a chair. There was a window with curtains drawn closed. I walked over to the window and pulled the curtains aside. The sunlight streamed in, filling the room with light. Outside, I saw a garden with colorful flowers and tall trees. It looked peaceful, but it didn't help me remember anything. Next to the window was a bookshelf. I hadn't noticed it before. I walked over and started looking at the books. Most of them were old and dusty, with titles that didn't mean anything to me. But then, one book caught my eye. It was a diary. I picked it up and opened it. The diary was filled with entries written in neat handwriting. As I read, I realized it was my handwriting. The entries talked about my daily life, my thoughts and my feelings. I read about a person named Alex, who seemed to be my best friend. There were also entries about a place called Greenfield, which seemed important to me. The more I read, the more I started to remember. I remembered Alex's face, with his bright smile and kind eyes. I remembered Greenfield, a small town with a park where I used to go for walks. I felt a sense of warmth and comfort as these memories came back to me. But there were still many things I didn't remember. The diary mentioned a big event that had changed everything, but it didn't say what it was. I felt a sense of frustration. I needed to know more. I decided to leave the room and explore the house. Maybe I would find more clues. I walked to the door and opened it. The hallway outside was just as unfamiliar as the room. It was long and narrow, with doors on both sides. I started walking, opening each door and looking inside. Most of the rooms were empty or filled with old furniture and boxes. But then I found a room that looked like an office. There was a desk with papers scattered all over it, and a computer. I sat down at the desk and started looking through the papers. One of the papers was a letter addressed to me. It was from Alex. As I read it, I felt a mix of emotions. The letter talked about the big event that had changed everything. It was an accident. I had been in a car accident, and I had lost my memory as a result. The letter also talked about how Alex had been trying to help me remember. He mentioned the diary and how he hoped it would bring back my memories. He also mentioned that he was waiting for me in Greenfield. I felt a sense of hope and determination. I needed to go to Greenfield and find Alex. Maybe being there would help me remember even more. I left the office and went back to the bedroom. I packed a few things and got ready to leave. As I stepped out of the house, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. I didn't know what I would find in Greenfield, but I knew I had to go. I started walking, feeling the sunlight on my face and the wind in my hair. I was ready for the journey ahead. The road to Greenfield was long and winding. As I walked, I thought about everything I had read in the diary and the letter. I thought about Alex and how much he meant to me. I also thought about the accident and how it had changed my life. The more I thought, the more I felt a sense of peace. I knew I was on the right path. I knew that finding Alex and going to Greenfield would help me remember who I was. I felt a sense of determination and strength. After walking for a few hours, I reached Greenfield. It was a small town, just as I had remembered. There was a park in the center with a fountain and benches. I walked to the park and sat down on a bench, looking around. I saw children playing, people walking their dogs, and couples sitting on the benches, talking and laughing. It was a peaceful and happy place. I felt a sense of comfort being there. As I sat there, I saw someone walking towards me. It was Alex. He looked just as I had remembered, with his bright smile and kind eyes. He walked up to me and sat down on the bench next to me. "Hi," he said, smiling. "I'm glad you came." "Hi," I replied, feeling a sense of warmth. "I'm glad I came too." We sat there for a while, talking and catching up. Alex told me about everything that had happened since the accident. He talked about how he had been trying to help me remember, and how much he had missed me. As we talked, I started to remember even more. I remembered our childhood together, the games we used to play, and the adventures we used to have. I remembered the park and how we used to come here every day. I felt a sense of happiness and relief. I was starting to remember who I was. I knew I still had a long way to go, but I felt a sense of hope. I knew that with Alex's help, I would be able to remember everything. We spent the rest of the day walking around Greenfield, visiting all the places that were important to me. We went to the park, the old library, and the small cafe where we used to get ice cream. Each place brought back more memories, and I felt a sense of joy. As the sun started to set, we went back to the park and sat down on the bench again. I felt a sense of peace and contentment. I knew I was on the right path, and I knew that I would be able to remember everything. "Thank you," I said to Alex, feeling grateful. "Thank you for everything." "You're welcome," he replied, smiling. "I'm just glad to have you back." We sat there in silence, watching the sunset. I felt a sense of happiness and fulfillment. I knew I still had a long way to go, but I felt confident and strong. I knew that with Alex's help, I would be able to remember who I was and find my way back to my old life. As the stars started to appear in the sky, I felt a sense of hope and determination. I knew that the journey was just beginning, but I was ready for it. I knew that I would be able to find my way back and remember everything. I was no longer lost. I had found my way back to myself, and I knew that with Alex by my side, I could face anything that came my way. The journey ahead was full of possibilities, and I was ready to embrace it. And so, with a sense of hope and determination, I looked up at the stars and smiled. I was ready for whatever the future held, knowing that I was not alone. I had found my way back to myself, and I knew that I would never be lost again.